There is someone in your life right now who argues with total confidence about things they know nothing about. They are loud, certain, and completely wrong. Psychology has a name for what you are witnessing. And once you understand it, you will never unsee it again. In 1999, psychologists Dunning and Kruger tested people on logic and reasoning. The results were deeply unsettling. People who scored the worst consistently rated themselves as above average. They called this the Dunning-Kruger effect, and it is not about arrogance. To see how much you do not know, you need enough skill just to spot the gaps. When that skill is missing, the gaps become completely invisible. This is why they speak with such certainty. Not because they are lying, but because from inside their head, there are no cracks in the wall. The smartest people you will ever meet are almost always the most uncertain. That discomfort of not knowing is not weakness, it is intelligence working correctly. When was the last time you said out loud, "I might be wrong about this," and truly meant it? That willingness to sit with uncertainty is one of the most underrated forms of intelligence alive. The second habit is quieter but just as revealing, a complete absence of curiosity. Research consistently identifies curiosity as one of the strongest predictors of intelligence. A mind operating at a lower level develops a very different relationship with new information. New ideas are not interesting to them, they are threatening. They say things like "I am just not a reader" or "I do not care about that stuff." What sounds like a preference is actually, psychologically, a defense mechanism. The people who need to learn the most are almost always the most resistant to learning anything. And they will defend that resistance with complete confidence. The third habit, once you see it, you cannot unsee it. A low-functioning mind divides the entire world into two columns, good and bad, right and wrong, us and them. Psychologists call this cognitive rigidity, the inability to hold two competing ideas in mind at once. These individuals simply cannot process the gray area where most of real life actually lives. Intelligence is the ability to navigate complexity and sit in ambiguity without collapsing it prematurely into a verdict. When that capacity is limited, the brain reaches for the simplest label available. The moment you introduce a counterpoint, they do not engage, they dismiss it entirely. The nuance does not compute, and rather than admitting that, the mind just routes around it. Poor emotional control is the fourth habit, and the science is impossible to ignore. Study after study shows that lower IQ is directly correlated with lower emotional regulation. Something minor triggers them and within seconds they have already responded from the worst version of themselves. The reaction comes before the reflection, every single time. Intelligent people feel the same irritation, but something else kicks in first. They observe the feeling before acting on it, and then they choose their response. That pause is not just emotional maturity. It is a cognitive function that requires working memory, self-monitoring, and the ability to model consequences. The fifth habit hits differently, because everyone blames others sometimes. What we are talking about here is a pattern where nothing bad is ever their own fault. The job fell through because the boss was unfair. The relationship ended because the other person changed. It is never because of their own choices. To consistently miss your own role in your outcomes, you have to be unable to trace causal chains that include yourself. That specific blindness is deeply connected to lower intelligence. Intelligent people have a ruthless honesty about their own role in their outcomes. Because they understand that seeing clearly is the only path to changing anything. When a person cannot do that, they repeat the same patterns indefinitely. Year after year, describing the same destruction as bad luck. The sixth and final habit is the most revealing of all. Pay attention to how someone responds the moment you simply offer a different point of view. A low-intelligence mind interprets disagreement as aggression. There is no world in which you might both be partially right. Engaging honestly with a counterargument requires real cognitive effort. When that process is not available, the mind defaults to aggression, dismissal, or complete shutdown. The shouting, the insults, the sudden withdrawal, that is not confidence. That is the sound of a mind that cannot process what it has been given. The most intelligent people you will ever meet are the most genuinely comfortable being wrong. Because they understand that being corrected is exactly how the mental model improves. Every time someone shows you an error in your thinking, they are handing you something valuable. What you do with it is entirely your choice. Low intelligence in the psychological sense has almost nothing to do with school or grades. It is about one simple question: how do you actually think? Do you question your own beliefs? Do you update your worldview when evidence contradicts it? The lower someone's cognitive functioning, the less capable they are of seeing any of this in themselves. The blind spot is part of the condition. But you are still here. You have spent the last several minutes examining your own patterns and asking whether any of this applies to you. That process, turning the lens on yourself, is itself a form of intelligence most people never access. It is rarer than you think. The goal was never to give you a list to judge other people with. The goal was to show you what the opposite of these habits looks like. Keep questioning your own assumptions. Stay genuinely curious about why you think the way you think. Because the mind, unlike almost everything else, gets better the more honestly you examine it. Not more comfortable, better. Self-awareness is not a finish line you cross once. It is something you return to every time you catch yourself reacting instead of reflecting. The people who grow the most are not the ones who started with the most. They are the ones who stayed honest with themselves long enough to actually change. Awareness itself is a profound form of intelligence. The question is simply what you choose to do with it. Keep growing. Keep questioning. And never stop trying to understand the deeper layers of your own mind. If any part of this made you pause, even for a moment, that pause already sets you apart. Most people never stop long enough to ask these questions at all. The mind that questions itself is the mind that grows. And that kind of growth is available to anyone willing to sit with the truth.